What if I told you that one of the most important spots in all of American sports history wasn't some huge stadium, but a little club you might just walk right past without a second thought? Well, today we are digging into the incredible, kinda hidden story of a tennis club that was literally there at the birth of the sport in the United States.
Just think about that for a second. What if a club that's actually older than the Tennis Hall of Fame, a club that helped write the original rules of the game in this country, was still around today, just hiding in plain sight? The year is 1878. Let that sink in for a moment. The Civil War's Reconstruction had just ended. The telephone itself was a brand new, crazy invention. So we're not just talking old, we are talking about the absolute foundations of modern America. All right, so to really get how important this club was, we have to go all the way back to its beginning, in the Gilded Age. And this wasn't just some local spot for a friendly hit, it was a true national pioneer.
Back then, it was known simply as the Albany Club. It was right downtown, and it had 2 indoor courts, which for the time was a luxury that was pretty much unheard of. They even added an outdoor court a few years later. This wasn't just a place to play, it was one of the very first buildings in the entire country built specifically for tennis.
In this timeline, wow, it really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? The Albany Club was founded 2 years before the Newport Casino, the place that would become the International Tennis Hall of Fame. It's even older than the very first golf club in the US. They were absolute trailblazers. But this right here might be the most important piece of the whole puzzle. When it came time to create a national governing body for the sport, the U.S. Lawn Tennis Association, the Albany Club wasn't just invited to the party. No, it was one of the 5 founding members. They weren't just playing the game, they were literally shaping its future. And their leader? A guy named General Robert Shaw Oliver. He wasn't just the club's president. He was elected the very first president of the entire U.S. Lawn Tennis Association. And there's this great little story behind that. Apparently, the big, powerful clubs in New York and Philly were so competitive, they couldn't agree on who should lead. So they picked General Oliver as this neutral consensus option. But that golden age of being a national powerhouse, well, it wasn't going to last forever. The next chapter in the club's story is all about change, and it's where its incredible history really started to fade from memory. So the first big change happens around 1912. The original Albany Club hands over its downtown property and its operations to the YMCA. The Y also got the property on Partridge Street, which is where the club is today. This was really the moment the club's original, super prestigious identity started to get a little blurry. And what came next is what some people call the forgotten decades. For about 40 years or so, from the 20s through the 50s, the official records get pretty thin. It'd be easy to just assume the club kinda fizzled out, but that's not what happened at all. Because even during this time, the spirit of tennis there was alive and kicking. The legend himself, Bill Tilden, one of the greatest players ever, actually played on these courts. The YMCA was hosting major tournaments, and by the late 1940s, the members had even started their own association just to keep the local tennis scene strong. And that brings us to the real conflict in this story, a moment when all this incredible history was almost just erased. Not by time, but by a simple question of money and upkeep. The club was right on the brink of being gone for good. The year is 1968. After running the courts for decades, the YMCA transfers the property over to the city of Albany. And that, right there, is when a really serious problem popped up. So here's the deal. Clay courts are fantastic, but they are expensive and need a ton of special care. There was a very real fear that the city, looking at its budget, would just say it's not worth the cost. They could have paved them over to make cheaper hard courts or just gotten rid of them completely. The historic soul of the club was on the line. But this isn't a story about loss. It's a story about community. Because, facing the end of their beloved clay courts, the members themselves decided to do something about it. This is how the club was reborn. They took their case straight to the city's very powerful mayor, Erastus Corning III. And their idea was simple, but kind of radical. As you can see here, they basically asked for permission to create their own group and, quote, assume responsibility for the courts they loved so much. Their plan was just so straightforward and brilliant. Step 1, make a formal association. Step 2, take complete control of everything, all the maintenance, all the operations. And Step 3, pay for it all themselves through member dues. They weren't asking for a handout, they were taking ownership.
And so, on October 1st, 1973, it was official. The members' new group was incorporated, and they picked a name that reached all the way back to its Gilded Age roots, the Albany Tennis Club. The historic name was back, saved by the passion of its own players.
And really, that's the big takeaway from this whole story. This incredible piece of American sports history, a club that stood with the giants of the Gilded Age, didn't just survive by accident. It was preserved by the passion and the action of a community that just refused to let it die.